All right, so if you like watching YouTube videos about guitar-based content, chances are you've come across a video about the CAGED method. And the CAGED method, in short, is a way to kind of expand our understanding of the neck using things that we're more familiar with. And I love all these videos. In fact, if it weren't for these videos, I don't think that I would really understand CAGED the way that I do. However, there's one thing that I feel like they all leave out, and that is the actual application of the CAGED method, or just in simple terms, how to actually practice it. So I'm going to give a brief overview of what the CAGED method is. If it doesn't make sense after the overview, go watch somebody else's video on it where they spend more time going in depth. Because really what I want to get to is after I do the brief overview, I'm going to talk about ways to actually practice CAGED and then really our main applications for CAGED. So let's get into it. CAGED is an acronym of sorts. What it really lends itself to is it's a way to view the neck using 5 simple chords that we know and love and have used since we first started guitar. And that is our C chord, our A chord, our G chord, our E chord, and our D chord. Hence, CAGED. And for any of us who have been playing guitar for longer than, I would say, about 6 months, and we've started to get into the bar chord realm of things, we know that when we take our E chord and play it with these fingers, we can then take that shape and move it up and bar across, essentially making our finger be the capo, if that makes sense to you. And we can move that shape up the neck, and it will work. We call this a movable shape because you can move it up and down the neck and get all the different chords. So when you start here, we have E, F, F sharp, G, A flat, A, B flat, B, and so on and so forth. The other bar chord that we learn is often based on the A shape as well, where we have this, and then we can bar it. There's our C, D flat, D, E flat, E, F, F sharp, so on and so forth again. It's taking that shape, moving it up and down. Well, that's our E and our A shape. This thought process also applies to, you guessed it, our C, G, and D shapes. So for instance, if we take our C, and then we go ahead and play it with these fingers and make our finger the bar, we can move all the way up and down the neck and play wherever we want. So this means if we take our C, A, G, E, and D, and we learn all of their variations, meaning we learn them as a major, a minor, a major 7, a dominant 7, the list goes on and on. If we can learn these 5 chords and all of these various qualities, we will be able to play up and down the neck and our fluency will increase. Now, this sounds all fine and dandy, and this is what everyone says in their videos, but the real question is, how do we actually apply this so that we can use it? Well, this is what makes sense to me and what I teach my students. The first thing that we need to learn is we need to learn where the roots are, meaning the roots of the chord. For those of you who are not aware, every single chord has a root, and that means it is the lowest note in the chord, and its root is its foundation, so to speak. And the easiest way to find the root is to figure out what the chord is named. So the root of a C chord is a C. The root of a G chord is a G. The root of an E flat chord is an E flat. You get the picture. And so our first step when mastering CAGED is to understand where the root notes fall. Okay, so we talk about chords and we talk about them in terms of whether or not the root lands on the 6th string, the 5th string, or the 4th string. Now, of course, we do have 3rd string root, 2nd string root, all that stuff, but we're just talking about those first 3 for now because that's what applies to CAGED in simple terms. The easiest way to remember this is that the C chord and the A chord are 5th string root chords, and the G and the E chord are 6th string root chords, and the D chord is a 4th string root chord. Let's take our E flat, for example. Our E flat on the 6th string can be found right here. On the 5th string, it can be found right here. And on the 4th string, it can be found right here. So we found the root across the top 3 strings. This means that we can therefore find our CAGED options. So for instance, this would be our G-shaped E flat major chord. Then we find it as an E shape. And we've now gotten rid of our 2 6th-string root options. These are the only options for a chord that can be played using the E flat on the 6th string. Let's move to the 5th string. Here is our C shape, and here is our A shape. And last but not least, on our 4th string root, we have our D shape. What you'll also notice is that if we look at the actual position of our hands relative to the root note, meaning if this is our E flat, our hands are positioned either below the root note on the neck, or they're positioned above the root note on the neck. Same thing here. With our C shape, we're below the root chord on the neck, and with our A shape, we're above the root note on the neck. The next question that comes up automatically is, why does the 4th string root only have the D shape? Well, that's because this is our above the root note shape. And if we go down below, what we'll notice is that this is actually just the top 4 strings of our 6th string root shape. And this is again where CAGED comes in handy, is because now you realize that you don't have to play the whole shape. In fact, it's probably not recommended to play the whole shape, especially in shapes like the C and the G shape, because that's a huge spread when you could just go do something like that, or something like this. Get some really nice inversions. Same thing with the C shape. You could just play these. Or these. And what you'll start to notice is that this is just our D. And so they all start connecting over time. However, what we really got to get into is, how do we practice this? So, first exercise, I always have my students use like early Beatles tunes to do this, but for the sake of monetization, we're just going to pick a simple chord progression, and that's going to be G, D, E minor, and C. And what you're going to do is you're going to pick just one shape. For this one, we're just going to do the E shape, and you're going to play that progression using only the one shape. So that means our G is now going to be here, our D is going to be up here, our E minor is going to be up here. And you'll notice that just like with the E, if we want to make it a minor, we just lift off that finger. Same thing for our bar chord. And then for our C, we're going to end up right here. And then practice that song or progression using just that one shape and get very fluent with it. Do this with multiple songs in multiple keys, because the first thing we got to do is we got to learn where the actual notes are on these 4 strings if we want to be really fluent with these different shapes. So you can do that same progression but in the key of B flat, and your chords would be B flat major, F major, G minor, and E flat major. Let's do the same progression, but in A flat, and let's try it using a D shape. Do this exercise using all 5 shapes. Start finding progressions that have like a dominant 7, maybe a major 7 if you're interested in more jazzy stuff. Ultimately, if you find yourself doing more rock and pop stuff, then you really only are going to need major, minor, and dominant. But learn them all anyway, become a great guitarist. Try it out, it's fun. The second exercise, once you've mastered kind of knowing where all the note names are and knowing how to do all the different shapes, try doing the same progressions, but keep yourself within one position as best you can. So for instance, let's take that G, D, E minor, C progression and see if we can do it, let's say on the 10th fret. Now we're starting to understand that we can play the same progressions that we know and love all over the neck. And if we utilize these exercises to get our fluency up on major, minor, dominant, etc., you'll find that all of a sudden you can really, really use these to your advantage. Now, the last thing that we have to talk about is application. When it comes to application, the number one use has to be using them to analyze songs that have already been written and really see, oh, this is what's happening here and there. If I'm playing this here, that's actually an A flat C shape. And when I drop back down to this, that's actually gonna be the connecting factor between like our 6th string root E flat or the top of our 5th string root A shape E flat. And all of a sudden you're seeing like, oh, there's some really intriguing things happening in the music I'm already listening to. Second application is when it comes to writing songs, we can now write more intricate guitar parts. If your main guitarist or your lead singer is using only power chords, because that's all they know, they didn't watch this video, then go ahead and use what you've learned in this video. Start writing a cooler rhythm guitar part or lead guitar part based off of all these shapes. And the final application that I see most frequently used, and it's used a lot, especially in jazz, is in the middle of solos, being able to pull out the chords that you're currently soloing over to create some really cool pedal tones or to just kind of show people that you know where you're at. Honestly, there's really limitless applications to this, and you can use it to play songs when you don't have a capo, to keep up with different key changes and different singers, and it really does expand your knowledge of the board, and that's really what this is all about. But let me know what you think down below. Is this something that you feel like could be really helpful? Is there something that you've done in the past that has really helped you with the CAGED method? Love to hear from you. For those of you who are returning, thank you guys so much for being a part of the channel. For those of you who are new here, please like and subscribe and come join the fun. If there's something you guys want me to talk about, as always, comment down below. I'd love to get some feedback. And as usual, my name is Mac Wright. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please go make someone else's day better. We'll see you around.